Hello, everyone, and welcome to Jewish World Weekly on I-24 News. I'm Emily Francis. Every week, we focus on stories, issues, and personalities of Jewish interest here in Israel and throughout the diaspora, the global Jewish community. And as always, we start with our top 5 items in the Jewish world, presented by Jody Natelovitz. Hi, Jody.
Thank you, Emily. Here are the top 5 items in the Jewish world this week. A shocking case out of Tehran. 70-year-old Iranian-American Jewish man has been sentenced to 2 years in prison for visiting Israel 13 years ago. He traveled there for his son's bar mitzvah, but Iranian authorities say that alone broke national law. The US is demanding his release on humanitarian grounds, calling the case politically motivated. In Rome, the Vatican has launched an internal investigation after a Swiss guard reportedly made an anti-Semitic gesture toward a visiting Jewish delegation. The alleged incident, during a meeting marking Catholic-Jewish friendship, shocked observers and drew an apology from church officials. The Vatican says any proven misconduct will lead to disciplinary action. American politics meets Jewish New York. Jack Schlossberg, grandson of President John F. Kennedy, is officially entering the race for Congressman Jerry Nadler's Manhattan seat. Schlossberg, who's long expressed pride in his Jewish heritage through his father, hopes to continue both his family's and district's progressive legacies. After a tense negotiation, Rabbi Doron Perez, whose son Daniel's body returned from 2 years in Hamas captivity last month, and Yaakov Hagoel are confirmed as the next joint leaders of the World Zionist Organization. They take over the oldest and largest Jewish organization in the world, with a $1 billion budget spent on strengthening Israel and the diaspora Jewish community. Their term comes after a political standoff in which attempts to appoint Yair Netanyahu were scrapped, drawing sharp criticism over transparency and power sharing. And finally, Israeli superstar Gal Gadot has been named this year's Genesis Prize laureate. Often called the Jewish Nobel, the award recognizes her cultural influence and outspoken support for Israel amid the Gaza conflict. Gadot says she'll dedicate the honor to humanitarian relief and unity among Jews worldwide. Those are the top 5 items in the Jewish world this week. Back to you, Emily.
It is a scandal that has rocked British media, with senior members of the BBC having to quit after admitting to doctoring a speech from President Donald Trump. In the last few years, the BBC has come under fire and criticism for its political coverage, especially the coverage of the Israel-Hamas war, with trust in the national broadcaster amongst British Jews at an all-time low. Joining us now from the UK is I-24 News UK correspondent Jonathan Sacherdoti. Hello, and thank you for being here, Jonathan.
Hi, good to be with you.
All right, so tell us a little more. According to a poll in late 2023, 86% of British Jews disagreed with the statement, "I am satisfied with the coverage of the BBC." Imagine that number is probably a lot higher now. Why is this the case?
There's been a perception in the Jewish community, but also many beyond it, that the BBC has an inbuilt bias on a number of different issues, but one of the main ones that people are aware of is on Israel and even Jewish issues. So particularly over the last 2 years, since the 7th of October 2023, there's been really discussed at how the war has been portrayed on the BBC. Most notably, they very famously or infamously refused to call Hamas terrorists, the BBC claiming that it has a long-standing policy not to refer to anyone as terrorists except when quoting other people who call them that. But of course, that's not been applied universally. It's certainly not been applied in cases of domestic terrorism. And so many have said that that refusal to list Hamas as terrorists when they are a proscribed terrorist group in the United Kingdom is just one example among many of how they have an anti-Israel bias. And what happened with this Telegraph report is that effectively one of their trusted advisors from within the BBC had made these complaints internally, had raised all of these issues, not just about Israel, but also particularly about a documentary film about Donald Trump that was broadcast just before the last elections, in which they cut one of his speeches on January the 6th in such a way that it made it seem like he was calling for people to go and commit acts of violence. In actual fact, they had edited out something like 40 or 50 minutes of footage between the first part and the second part to make it seem that way. All of this has combined to create a massive crisis of trust. And it is the Donald Trump speech which in the end pushed the Director General, Tim Davie, and the CEO of News, Deborah Turness, to resign after Donald Trump has also threatened now to sue the BBC apparently for $1 billion.
Also, what's interesting, ironically, is that pro-Palestinians are actually saying that the BBC is biased toward Israel. But let's talk about a BBC News online Middle East editor, Rafi Berg, who is now suing a prominent journalist, Owen Jones, for saying that Berg is pushing an Israel agenda. Tell us more about what you know on that.
Absolutely. Well, what happened in relation to that is some time ago, Owen Jones, who is a well-known columnist for The Guardian newspaper, but also writes elsewhere, wrote a column about Rafi Berg, who is a long-standing BBC veteran who has worked in the corporation for many, many years as a Middle East editor on, I think, the online desk. He wrote that Rafi Berg was in some way controlling all of the Middle East output, and that he had influence over pretty much everything that he wanted. And he quoted people he said were whistleblowers who had complaints about Berg's involvement in the coverage. Much of this, of course, is disputed by Rafi Berg and I believe the BBC themselves. And Rafi Berg is now suing Owen Jones and the publishers of that piece, I think, because of the damage it has done to his reputation, and also because of the enormous amount of attention it got online. Of course, Owen Jones being such a prominent voice, whose prominence has only grown since October the 7th, when he's taken on a much harder line and often quite fanatical anti-Israel tone. That attention that he brought to Rafi Berg has resulted, I believe, in him being threatened and having, let's say, increased security needs as a result of much of the abuse that he's had online, and I believe, indeed, some threats of real-life violence towards him. And as a result of all that, Berg is suing because he says that the article was not accurate, not correct, and that it has had this negative result. Of course, if that is successful, this could be a very costly thing for Owen Jones. But Owen Jones is vigorously defending himself, he said, and if he has to, he will do so in court.
All right. Thank you so much for that breakdown, Jonathan Sacherdani. With only approximately 200,000 Jewish Holocaust survivors still alive, 70% are expected to pass away in the next decade. So testimonies of the agonizing horrors continue to be of vital importance as anti-Semitism continues to rear its ugly head in today's modern world. So now, on the 87th anniversary of Kristallnacht, a small group of survivors reunited in Jerusalem to share their stories of survival. Here's more in my report.
November 9th, 1938, a defining moment for Jews in Europe. Kristallnacht, also called Night of the Broken Glass, and the November Pogrom. Nazi rioters killed 91 people, ransacked and burned 1,400 synagogues, 7,500 Jewish businesses and homes throughout Germany and Austria.
The lesson of Kristallnacht should be never again. We decided, the three of us, unanimously, that we must do it. It's important for us to do it and to do everything in our power to ensure that there will be no repeat.
With a dwindling number of survivors alive to tell their stories, George Sheffy, Walter Bingham, and Paul Alexander are sharing their childhood memories of that fateful day.
I also walked to school, and I saw there was some commotion in the street. It wasn't the same as usual. And as I neared the synagogue, the schoolrooms, I saw there lots of people, and there was the synagogue smoldering, in fact.
Historians view Kristallnacht as a prelude to Hitler's final solution. 30,000 Jewish men were arrested and sent to concentration camps and were ultimately among the 6 million Jews murdered in the Holocaust.
I contacted my mother because my father had already been deported earlier on to Poland, and I never saw him again.
However, in the eye of darkness, a sliver of light.
My mother said to me, tomorrow you're going to go by train, by ship to see another country, very beautiful, wonderful. And make a list, decide which toys you want to take with you and pack your clothes.
George Sheffy was one of 10,000 Jewish children rescued to the UK by the British Humanitarian Rescue Program, known as the Kindertransport. Paul Alexander was an infant who spent years in an orphanage and was one of the lucky ones to reunite with his parents years later.
It was because of the Kristallnacht and what happened that the Jewish people in England decided that they must save Jewish families from Germany and get them out as quickly as possible.
These children, for the most part, went on to live fruitful adult lives, including renowned sex therapist, the late Dr. Ruth Westheimer, who was also rescued on the Kindertransport. Though an orphan, she moved to Palestine and was a sniper in the Haganah. Now, on this 87th anniversary, an important reunion at Jerusalem's Great Synagogue, a reminder of the importance of never again, and making sure, in light of the October 7th massacre, history doesn't repeat itself.
Our next guest is a filmmaker who's using his own creative approach to storytelling. And his latest documentary, Torn, captures the emotional and scarring fallout of the campaign to rip down posters of the hostages throughout New York City and the rest of the world. Take a look at a short clip.
6 of my family members were taken hostage by Hamas. I just tried to not think of the worst.
I started to spot these posters around. It meant the world to me to see that other people cared about them.
Fucking propaganda. 3,000 Palestinians have lost their lives.
I haven't seen a single poster about my people.
It is perpetuating a completely false narrative.
Where are the Palestinians?
A genocide against Palestinians is just not genocide.
Seeing these faces is the ultimate challenge to the oppressed, oppressor binary view.
You're ripping down posters of kidnapped Jewish babies in your little Yasser Arafat scarves.
It's a trap, and you're willingly walking into the trap.
Joining us now in studio is Neem Shapira. Thank you so much for being here, and a huge accomplishment, with a lot of charged energy as you're making this film. I mean, given that you've done so much work prior to this, music videos, commercials, was this just something when October 7th happened and we started seeing this, it was just this call to action, like this existential reaction inside?
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course.
I didn't want to make this movie. And, I've been living in New York for 13 years. My accent doesn't go away. I'm Israeli, but I'm also American. And when those posters were put up, this was kind of like my, you would say, looking at other people that care in the city, it's kind of like a silver lining, This city has such a huge Jewish population, such a big Muslim population, so many people in the middle. So seeing those, it was someone is thinking about me, its identity, belonging, memory. And then once they were put up, they were torn down. And not only the posters were torn down, the social fabric of the city was torn down.
Yeah.
And for me as a New Yorker who knows every corner in the city, I'm like, this is where I shop. This is where I cut my hair. So it started from how can I help, thousands of miles away from the actual war. How can I change conversation in New York, conversations about empathy, about belonging, also about freedom of speech. And it was also my way of dealing with questions that I had in my brain, working on the film while the war is still going on. And then touring with it between October 7, 2024 to October 7/2025. At every screening, the situation, you can't enter the same river twice because you're not the same person and it's not the same river. The film changed every time because the political situation changed, death tolls changed, hostage numbers was changed, who's alive, who got out. And of course, as Jews living in the diaspora, you're asking yourself, so many questions, and that's what the film does. It doesn't give answers, it asks questions.
Well, and that's what makes it, it's smart that that's the way you did it, because it makes it relevant even, now the story's not over, right? The hostages have come home, but the story's not over. It was such a visceral thing for people to literally be not even acknowledging that these are human beings that are, as we now know from the testimonies, how they were being treated. How were you being treated as you were, walking around New York, filming this? We saw so much stuff of New Yorkers getting in each other's faces, as New Yorkers do. But what was your experience?
It's it's not a secret that we're more tribal and echo-chambered than ever. The posters didn't just exist in the streets of New York. The war continued online to social media. Yeah. And that's what I am showing in the film. What's really, really interesting and depressing is that this proxy war of glue and paper didn't just happen between the Muslim community and the Jewish community in New York City. Every person from every age group and every ethnical background took it upon themselves to tear down the posters. And they didn't have skin in the game, like you saw in the teaser that you just showed.
And didn't understand why they were doing it. They just,
They understood that, they understood that basically they don't, it's a war of empathy. And if you're seeing this, it means that there's no empathy for the Palestinian side. So in this binary war, if there's a war between narratives, right? And you need to, the narratives are competing. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to speak over the other and not understand that multiple things can be true at the same time. That's hard for a human brain to compute. So yes, I've faced a lot of people ostracized me from my communities and inner circles and friendships that I have formed in the past decade. But when I screened it all across the United States, I heard, horrible, horrible stories. And, we are not hostages in Gaza. We don't have missiles and rockets on our head, but still, kids were treated in the most horrible way in high schools and in universities, just because they are Jews, even without having any political opinion stated in the open or, in closed doors. So you really saw silence from religious leaders all around the United States. And it's it was a very, and still is, a very lonely experience. So I'm happy that I got to show the film, to Jewish communities to start some sort of a maybe healing process, but also recognition. And important conversations have been held, but also Muslim audience members, Mormons, Christians, of course, and I've had even Buddhists in the audience sometimes. So
it means you're doing something right.
Yeah, I felt with the film, I felt the press coverage in conservative media, but also in liberal media, and every screening that I had, people are happy with 75% of the film, but then they're like, but why did you have this? Or why did you have that? And I'm happy that...
Right, because it means they actually listened and paid attention. Lastly, before we run out of time, it's really a huge accomplishment that you're kind of qualified to be in the running for Best Documentary at the 2026 Oscars. I know it's still a process, but that alone is very significant. I'm sure it feels good.
It feels amazing. And the film, the war is over. There is a fragile ceasefire. But it's so important for me that people have these conversations because it's a mirror to where we are today as a society. So I opened the film to be streamed at torn-film.com. And if you're in the United States or in Israel, you can stream the film. and it's coming to Europe in the next month.
And PBS.
Yes, of course. PBS has it as well.
All right, Neem, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And yes, I know it is a lonely job doing what's right, but at least now you're able to, sit back and receive the accolades.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. One of the Jewish people's most vocal haters, Kanye West, seems to be trying to make amends for the damage that he's caused. The rapper, known as Ye, met privately with well-known Rabbi Yosef Pinto. Take a listen to part of their exchange.
I feel really blessed to be able to sit here with you today and just take accountability. I was dealing with some various issues, dealing with bipolar also. So it would take the ideas I had and have them taken them to an extreme where I would forget about the protection of the people around me and myself.
Joining us now from Tel Aviv is Chen Mazig, a senior fellow at the Tel Aviv Institute. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
You're just tireless in the work that you do, as we all know, and we've been seeing you really, combat in such a smart and thoughtful way, combating the narratives and the anti-Semitism. What do you make of, first of all, the damage that he has done with, everything in the past year, 2 years, and beyond, before meeting with Rabbi Pinto?
Yeah, no, thank you for the kind words. I've been doing this work for over a decade, fighting anti-Semitism, and I'm often the one that is saying, we need to build bridges. We can't just dismiss everyone or cancel everyone. We just need to find our allies and offer people a second chance. But I think we have given Kanye West so many chances over the years. This guy has praised Hitler. It wasn't a slip, but it was a repeated choice. He said he loved Hitler. He claimed that Nazis did good things and positioned himself as a defender of one of history's worst criminals that has committed a genocide and killed a third of the Jewish people. We don't need to remind ourselves who the Nazis are and who Hitler was. So, he mainstream conspiracy theories and radicalized millions. His platform is enormous. When someone with that reach injects Jew hatred into popular culture, the impact is immediate and it's so large scale that I don't think a meeting with a rabbi to say I'm sorry is the right way to go about it.
Now, also, he keeps saying I'm bipolar. Like he said this for years. It's not a big surprise. So, okay, he is, and then anytime he has this kind of episode, he's going on a talk show. He's all the things that he's doing. It isn't an excuse.
Right. No, he uses mental health as a shield. And in fact, I think he's harming people that are actually suffering from mental health because they're not going around and praising Hitler because of their mental illness. That's not something that, it's not an excuse. I think it's harming this severeness and the seriousness of mental health issues. And he alternated between apologies and escalation, framing bigotry as illness. And mental illness does not produce targeted, historically literate hate. He knew exactly which stereotype he was deploying, and he did it. And I don't think it's connected to his mental illness. I think it's connected to a deeper issue that he has. And the Jewish people are always the butt of his assault. So we have every right to say this is not okay and that we're not accepting this apology after over and over again being the subject of violence and hate that his words have incited.
Well, and when it really doesn't influence his life really specifically in any way. I mean, Jews have given him so many of the opportunities he's had in the music business. But one thing I do want to say with his meeting with the rabbi, I mean, it is a tenet of Judaism to transform, to ask for forgiveness, what's called a tikkun. I mean, is there the fact that he did at least go did and take some accountability? I mean, is this a positive first step? Can we trust that maybe he will take it beyond and maybe apologize directly to the Jewish people rather than trying to get forgiven by a rabbi?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I just think that this meeting with this rabbi right now is just theater. It's cost-free reputational laundering after years of damage. I'm definitely open to seeing where this goes and where his work would be would be at in the coming years. But what he has done to the Jewish people and the harm that he caused us is not going to be fixed with one meeting. We absolutely are open people, and we've gave him many chances, and I'm sure we'd be open as a community to give him more chances in the future. But we need to see serious work. It's not just the same way that he posted repeatedly, relentlessly, and post about Jews, made songs about Hitler. I want to see the same energy that he put into abusing us into correcting this. And once he does it, once he write a song about Jews and celebrate Jewish identity and stand up against anti-Semitism repeatedly, then I'll be open to considering it.
But, maybe he would, if he were open to meeting you, would you be able to, advise him on how to, clearly he has an interest in the Jewish people. Maybe he, if he's willing to listen to you, maybe he can be somebody that could try to change people's opinions if he's changed.
Yeah, I mean, consider this an open invitation for Kanye West. Whenever you want, reach out, and I'll be happy to sit down and speak about anti-Semitism, Jewish identity, and help you, re-educate yourself on Jewish people.
Well, maybe you'll hear from him because we know Kanye is a regular viewer of I-24. Just kidding.
Yes.
Thank you so much, as always, Chen Bazig. Keep up the tireless work that you are doing on all of our behalves.
Thank you so much.
And that's all for this week's episode of Jewish World Weekly. I'm Emily Francis, and we sure hope you enjoyed it. If you want to see more segments and past shows that you might have missed, you can head over to our I-24 News YouTube channel and our specific Jewish World Weekly playlist, as well as, of course, on our website and our social media platforms. Thanks again for watching, and shalom from Tel Aviv.